Welcome back to the channel, everybody. As most of you know, storytelling for social media is a lost art, but it's also very critical to your success. So I asked my friend Carrie Bobb to come on. She's the CEO of Hello Jenny, and they do this for a lot of brands. They go in, they talk about the retail brand, they find the story in it, and then they create the content around it. It's absolutely phenomenal. So she's going to be on the show today. Make sure you check out the video and give us a like. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Joe Kellinger. I've been a real estate entrepreneur for over 20 years. And I use this channel to bring on guests like Carrie to really give you the tips and tricks to find success in the real estate industry. So again, make sure you watch the video, give us a like, and if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about how to tell your story for social media. And for that, I've got one of the best in the business, Carrie Bobb. Carrie's a friend, and we've known each other now for a couple of years, and I've seen her work. It's phenomenal. And Carrie, thank you for coming on the show today.
Joe, I love hanging out with you, and I'm so excited about this conversation. This should be really fun.
I think so. And I think it's such a key part to what every person is trying to draw in business on these social networks. They need to understand how to tell a story. And so I guess I'm just going to kind of throw it to you and, walk us through how can we start generating more revenue from our social networks by storytelling.
I think the biggest thing that people in commercial real estate need to understand, if you're over a certain age, I kind of use 35 as my barometer, but I'm making that up. It's kind of like your technical intelligence, right? Like how well you are with different apps and things. But I think we need to strengthen our skill set on content creation and storytelling. And it sounds really overwhelming. And if people aren't used to using different apps or creating, it sounds really daunting. It's really not that bad if you just take some time to invest in understanding how it works. And then it takes maybe a few times. Like the first time we all made a reel, you're like grinding your gears a bit, trying to figure out how you trim things down or do it. And then once you do it 2 or 3 times, it's a lot easier to do. And that impacts your business so much that the time on the front end to learn how to do it is minimal, considering how much it's going to impact our business. When we were at CREI and we had the little workshop where the Hello Jenny team, we were teaching people how to make a reel from their phone. And I don't know, there were maybe 20, 25 people there that had never made a reel, and they were trying to, or a TikTok. And I'm getting tagged in so many reels and TikToks now because these people, their first one that they did is like it's a little like choppy of where things are at. And now they're doing it so fast and they've got the music and the whole thing. And it only took them a couple times to get up to speed.
Well, it's hard. It's very daunting to see yourself on camera, recording yourself. And then, to take that first step, it's really hard to hit post. It's really hard to post it up there for everybody to see because you feel vulnerable, right? That's a big word for me, I guess, on a Monday morning. And so, it's hard to do, but you've got to start.
I think if people really understood what happens if you don't post and you don't put yourself out there, that's even more daunting because the world is going more and more towards social media, and that's how people are getting their information. That if we're not putting ourselves out there, the shelf life of our career gets a little bit shorter, not even a little bit, maybe even a lot, depending on certain things. And so it's how you stay relevant. And people, I think, are very forgiving if you're very authentic. Like, okay, this is my first reel. I'm giving it a try. You guys hang in there with me. That's very endearing. And most people really like that. They like to see you working through things and learning things. One thing I made a note about what I think is one of the most important things to keep in mind when storytelling or posting, and that is intent and motives. Like, it's not something that we really think about a lot because we're trying to promote our business and put it up there for a reason. But if we come from a place of either learning, giving, sharing, trying to help our audience, it's gonna grow and it's gonna benefit you in certain ways. But if we're putting it out there to try and make ourselves look better, just sell. And the number one thing is to drive revenue. It's not going to be as meaningful or impactful. And the first thing we have to do is check our intent and motives. Are we posting this to help somebody? And the example of, I'm just trying to figure this out, where you're kind of being vulnerable, that is helping people, because there are so many other people who feel that way and they will identify with that person. And anytime I see somebody post like that, I'll always comment and rooting for them, because they're showing that they're stepping outside their comfort zone and they're trying to grow their business. They're trying to help their clients, and they're just figuring it out as they go, which we're all doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the process, it's a learning process, right? And so I kind of went down a rabbit hole this weekend. I was looking at, I don't know if you know who Casey Neistat is. He's one of the top YouTubers. And his big thing is you have your beginning, you have your conflict, and then you have your resolution. And he goes, if you follow that, he goes, that's the basics of a good video. And all these years, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much right, isn't it? You kind of introduce it, here's my conflict. This is what I do to resolve it. And if you do that right, you're going to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah. And preparing for this, I kind of went through some of the posts that I've saved of people that I follow and I look to for advice. And every single one of them says, you have to niche down and be a storyteller of one thing that people come to you for, that one thing. And I think it comes down to, what problem are you trying to solve?
Right.
What is the pain point of your client or the industry that you're trying to solve? And how do you help people overcome certain obstacles? To your point of, because if people identify pain, if we're talking in a post about a pain point in our industry, then I do a lot with the social media, like how to build your strategy for social in retail restaurants or something like that. Anybody who's a restaurant broker that's trying to figure out their strategy, that will identify with them, because that is a pain point for them. They're trying to figure it out. And so if we hone in on the pain and then shows breadcrumb the solution of how we can help them, they'll keep coming back for more. And I think sharing the how is really, really important to keep them coming back, to your point, like the 3 sections, but they will identify it in the pain. They will identify with the pain and in the conflict, and then show them how you solve it or how they can solve it. And then when they solve that pain point because of something you posted, they will think of you every time. It's really cool.
Yeah, who's really good at that is Kyle and Sarah. If
Yes.
you go in and watch his stuff, some of the tips he gives for restaurant owners and managers, if this is happening to you, then this is how you need to resolve it. Very powerful. I like to tune in just to look at his stuff, just for those tips.
Yes. Yeah. And you can feel the pain in his, I've never owned a restaurant, but watching his posts, you can feel the pain of some of those circumstances are happening to somebody, and he kind of helps them navigate sticky situations.
Yeah,
It's brilliant. Yeah.
Well, also, Kyle's really good about, he has a mix of, his storytelling is good in that, you see him do his kids' football, his dog, and his business. So he's kind of personalizing it as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the power in what he's doing. So
yeah.
Tell us some of the other points that you had there. You're writing down.
Well, I think questions to ask ourselves when we post, like everybody talks about adding value, but they don't really talk about how to add value to our audience. And there's typically 3 or 4 ways where you can add value. Does it teach them something? Are we educating, sharing something we know, and things that we think is really common in our industry, in our niche, or in our market? We take that for granted. And I think it doesn't have to be some big epiphany about something. It's just really simple things and showing market knowledge. And just, there's going to be somebody out there that doesn't know what triple net means. What's the difference between triple net and gross lease? Yeah. And so, like, being really simple, it doesn't reflect poorly on us by explaining those things. Those are just helpful tools for somebody. So does it educate or teach them something? does it entertain or make them feel something, like with Kyle, because he does some entertaining, funny things as well. I have laughed out loud and like showed my husband Kyle's TikToks before because it's so funny. And so I think that's where you can kind of like make fun of yourself or your life or whatever. I think those are really fun too. And then lastly, does it inspire or motivate people? And a lot of times we try to think of inspirational posts, but it's like, does it get people thinking differently about a subject or a topic that you talk about all the time? Like how you would approach, like we were talking before hopping on about how you navigate some of this like weird world we're in and how you try and like make your market share wider and go into a wider market kind of thing and things like that.
If we also, we think about doing this as just as putting ourselves out there as marketing. And I think we should talk about analytics and how we need to be looking at those so we can kind of gauge what works and doesn't work. We sit down and look at our analytics every week, and every Monday morning, we've already done it. And we look at this, wow, this one really pulled. And more often than not, ones that I think are really going to pull, dead. Absolutely dead. And so, but it gives us a path then to what we can kind of follow. And okay, this works. Let's stay along this path, not necessarily on the same topic but, tweak it. And because that's something that really pulled. How often do you look at your analytics? You might look every day because this is what you do.
I do. Well, I'm like a data nerd and like a consumer behavior nerd. I obsess over it. I just find it so fascinating. And I equate it to if you're a tenant rep broker helping a new retailer go into a new market, you wouldn't start negotiating on deals or locations without looking at the demographics and the data.
Right.
And so to just start posting and seeing what sticks is kind of like that. You want to look at the analytics and understand the data so you continue to give your audience more of what they want. I'm totally the same way. The things that I think everyone's going to love, and this is a brilliant post, goes nowhere. And then the stuff that I kind of do as an afterthought kind of takes off a little bit. So it's interesting because it's hard when a post or something that you really care about or is meaningful to you and you post and it doesn't do well. It's a bummer. Like nobody likes that, but our audience is still telling us something. Like that we're still getting information from them. And so I think you can go about it a couple different ways. Like, okay, maybe the topic's fine, but the delivery is different. So try that information in a different format or something like that. And if it still doesn't work, you pivot. There was a book that I had read when I was first digging into social commerce, like understanding how money is being driven through these social media apps. And it was Brendan Kane, 1 million followers. And he got to 1 million followers in like 30 days. It was a test because he had helped celebrities grow their social platforms. And he thought, do these strategies grow if you're not a celebrity? So he did it on himself, like nobody really knew his name. And he'd used the same kind of strategies, and he got to 1 million followers. And he said, there's really only 3 steps that you need to think about when you're building your strategy. It's hypothesize, test, pivot. So you think, okay, these are some topics, or these are things that my audience wants to learn or see or have information from me. You test it, you post it, and then you read your analytics and you pivot based on how they respond. So your strategy is constantly pivoting.
Right.
If it goes great with the audience, you go this way until it doesn't, and then you go this way. So you're constantly like zigzagging your content strategy.
Yeah. And the analytics too, this is really, we're doing this for inbound leads, right? You want to get people to call you. There's got to be a balance between this is really working well. Could it just be entertaining? Am I not bringing enough value? And is the number of inbound leads a good measure of that, do you think?
Well, there's different KPIs, like key performance indicators. And there's non-revenue generating KPIs and then revenue generating KPIs. So like the analytics that you were talking about, like engagement rate, comments, shares, saves, like how are people engaging with a certain post? Those are all non-revenue generating KPIs. And then you can have different revenue generating KPIs. Like, so for some of our properties, it's genuinely reaching out to prospective tenants, them having interest in leasing space. So that's one, but you can also have connections with brands or key people that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So tracking that, and there's just different ways. There's different ways to measure your success. And we have a lot of different clients, and success looks differently for every single one. Yeah. Not to have the same goals for how they're using social. And so I think understanding what people, like if I'm an individual in commercial real estate trying to better use my platform, identifying what I want out of it, I think is important. I don't do a lot of call to actions. I do think if people are trying to drive revenue from their social, I think you could do every fourth or fifth post. That's pretty aggressive. Is like you have a call to action of like DM me this, or save or follow or whatever. I don't do a lot of that because we're managing property handles and we're trying to build relationships. It's a little bit of a softer sell, but I do think in our industry, people could have more call to actions. I think people are scared, kind of like what I'm saying, of coming across too salesy, and they're just trying to add value and develop a brand. But I think you could say, if you're a startup in LA and you're looking for your first brick and mortar or whatever, message Sammy or somebody on your team that would help somebody like that. Like people having like clear call to actions.
Yep.
I think there's a void right now in commercial real estate for people doing that, myself included.
Yeah, I see it. There's a fine balance between entertainment and bringing, valuable information. Is there how do you gauge that? How do you think, okay, I'm a little over the top here. Maybe I need to tone it down a little bit. Do you just go by how you feel? You think, okay, that's a little too much and not enough value, and too much entertainment, not enough value? Or there's got to be a balance there somewhere, right? I'm terrible at it. I'm the entertaining part. I'm not very good. I just try to bring value to our viewers. And, fortunately, I rely on guests like you. And, how do you make that balance?
I don't consider myself entertaining. So the two of us sitting here talking is probably very boring.
Oh, your posts, I mean, your posts are always enlightening and funny, and do a lot about your family. And I know with real estate, now that you've relocated, getting back into it, you'll go back to doing that. It's phenomenal. The way you marketed your retailers, you always made it beautiful. The visuals were great. The copy was always great. You had it scrolling down a lot. It was, and just very informative about the retail going on in your area. And so I look forward to getting back to it. But how did you balance that?
I think it's really personal, and everyone's measure will be different. Yeah. I've done a lot. I've tested a lot. And when I first was trying to understand, I saw a huge open ocean for how commercial real estate could use social media. No one was doing it. This was pre-COVID. Yeah. And so I just told myself, I'm going to start putting myself out there on social, and I'm going to test and hypothesize and see how it does. So, and I had no shame. I was doing lip syncing. I was doing all sorts of, I wasn't dancing.
Right.
Maybe one or two really slight, but that's about it. And I was trying all the different trends and all the different types of posts. I've done it all. And what I've gathered for me personally was, when I was doing that, a lot of my clients on the brokerage side are institutional business. And when I was doing that, they didn't respond bad, but they started to look at me a little bit different. Yeah. And so I pulled back on that, and I started doing more educational speaking posts, but it's constantly changing. Like, I think you have to kind of like read it a little bit. Some people can pull those entertaining ones off really well, and no one thinks anything different
Right.
about it. It just wasn't genuinely who I was. And like, it just came, I don't know. I don't regret it or anything. I've learned
Oh,
so
you
much
had
through
to
it
test the
all.
waters, man. It was new, and I mean, look what it did for your business. You ended up going down there for I don't know how many years you were there, but it wasn't long. You're one of the top retail brokers down there, so it obviously worked.
It does work. And I would encourage people, dip your toes in the water to test it. I just jumped head first. And
Mhm.
so I don't want to scare people of trying some of that. I think a way, if people are like you and I were like, I don't know how entertaining or funny I can be, finding funny audio over video where you don't have to talk and you don't have to do anything is a really good way to be funny without you personally having to do anything. So you can find clips from movies or things like that and put it over a closed down restaurant or a line that's really long out of a restaurant with the right audio that can be really funny. So
Can you get dinged and charged for using? Or is there so many seconds you can use for free, or is it can somebody that recorded that come back and ding you for using on your Instagram or any of your social?
well, I'm getting it through Instagram. I'm not necessarily
Okay, so yeah, so
downloading
it's
it
approved through
from
them. Yeah.
somewhere else. Right. And so if you wanted to do, I'm trying to think of a funny quote. I saw one from The Office last night. And so if you see a funny audio, if you click on the audio in TikTok or Instagram, you can save that audio
Gotcha.
and then come back later. Like the one I saw, it's not a funny one, but it was just from The Office saying, I wish there was a way you could tell when you were in the good old days before you actually left the good old days. And I just thought that was a really sweet
Yeah.
audio. And so
Yeah.
you could put that over a lot of different things. And that doesn't take a whole lot of effort from me as a creator. And I don't even have to be in it.
Right.
You can just record a happy hour downtown or something
Yeah.
like that.
Exactly. On the storytelling side of it, how do you? I guess you go by your audience. You're beginning, right? What you're going to make the video about. How do you decide? You just think it's for your market. Well, this is when you're doing real estate, of course. When your market, or what's like, okay, I think this will really work for my followers. Is that the path you take?
Yeah, I would figure out who your main client is
Yeah.
and what's their pain point, and also too, like where's the biggest opportunity.
Right.
And so to become like really grab that like digital footprint in that space and just lean really heavy into that pain point or that opportunity. We just moved to Nashville, and there's a lot of opportunity on social to be branded a certain way in commercial real estate. Melissa Alexander has done a great job with Nashville Industrial.
Hasn't she
And
though?
so,
Yeah.
I mean, and she's crushing it. So following people like that who might not necessarily be in your same niche or specialty type, but they're doing something right in their own specialty, and kind of following people like that, I think is a good way to kind of tiptoe in. And so like I had said, a lot of my clients on the landlord side are really institutional clients. So my posts are now pretty buttoned up. I might do some stuff with my kids and things like that, but I'm pretty like, I'm walking the line straight and narrow on especially like market intel, social things like that, because of who my core audience is.
Right. Yeah, you kind of have to cater to them, and we better not. We need to mention Casey Flannery too if we're going to mention Melissa. So that
For
Nashville market,
sure.
those two are doing phenomenal work on their social. Even TikTok, they're getting on there and doing well. All right, well, Carrie, this has been phenomenal, and I think this is a key point that everybody needs to understand, that the storytelling needs to be a significant part of how you figure out what you're going to post. Really target your market, know what you want to post. Get your beginning, your conflict, and your resolution, and it'll help you get views a lot, and it'll get inbound leads coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer. But all right, Carrie, I'm going to put your contact information down below. Thank you very much for coming on today. And if anybody, actually tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I have a brokerage company and a social media company, and our social media company runs handles for properties. So we help properties with their branding, their messaging, their storytelling, and getting their goals. And so that was just through trial and error of me trying to figure out how to do it for myself. And then we started helping clients, and now we're in 15 states, which is amazing. So I've learned a lot.
And that is the value I wanted you to bring to our followers today. So thank you very much for doing that. And again, I'm going to put Carrie's information down below. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you give us a like. And if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.